Hello, everybody. Welcome to the special meeting of the El Cajon City Council. We continue to hold meetings remotely due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and I'd like to remind our citizens they can submit their questions for items on tonight's agenda. Comments will be accepted up to the conclusion of the vote for this item. Comments may be submitted through the City of El Cajon's website, which is www.cityofElcajon.us, under Agendas and Minutes. Just go to the video streaming and you'll see a button to submit your questions. The meeting is called to order, and I'd like to ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and council, if you can please state that you are present when I call on your name. Mayor Wells?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick?
Here.
Council Member Goebel?
Here.
Council Member Metchnell?
Here.
And Council Member Ortiz?
I'm here.
Thank you, sir.
All right, please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance and followed by a brief moment of silence. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I just want to say once again, if you have a comment, those of you in the public that would like to comment on this, go at any time and submit your comments, and we'll make sure everybody's comment gets entered into the record. All right, we're at administrative reports. So we called a special meeting to conduct a priority and goal setting workshop, and I would like to ask our city manager, Graham Mitchell, to tell us more about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We're really excited to do this. This is something that I think is important for all organizations, whether they're public entities or the private sector. It's important to have goals and priorities. As Councilmember Ortiz said to me the other day, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. And so there's some value in identifying the things that are important that you want to focus on in the upcoming year, not only from a sort of broad policy perspective, but maybe some specific goals for each of those broader priorities. I've been doing these types of sessions for years now. This is the first time I've ever done it virtually, but there has been a format that I found has worked the most effective. And what I've presented in the staff report is trying to duplicate what we can do in an open room. And by the way, I would never suggest we have a goal setting session in the council chambers. If we were to do this in live, I'd recommend we use the Reagan Center and we move around and break around and put dots on pieces of paper. I think there's some value in kind of doing that, getting away from the dais and sort of breaking up the tradition, and it helps break up the sort of the thought process. So we've tried to duplicate a traditional goal setting session. I'll explain that. However, if the council wants to do something different, staff is okay with that. If we want to just sort of have a more traditional conversation with all of us, I think that would work as well. But I would recommend that we try this breakout session, and it could work out really cool, or it could be just a total failure. So what I would recommend is we actually break into different groups, and I've actually have groups assigned where there's 2 council members in 2 groups, and then 1 council member by himself in another group, and then those groups will be augmented with department directors. The intent is to sort of have a small group discussion around a very specific topic, and not for a very long time, but get some ideas on a piece of paper, identify a spokesperson, and then come back and then present out to the rest of the group. I think you'll find that there's a lot of commonality between the groups, and it will actually help create this coalescence around things and priorities that you're wanting to focus on. I think there's some value in having goals and having priorities when you have a council. I'll just use it for lack of better words, a dysfunctional city council. When council members are going in a lot of different directions, it really helps staff know where this council wants to go. But it actually has even more power when you have a unified city council. And I'll just say, council, you're one of the most unified city councils I've ever worked with. You all have very different opinions. You all have very different backgrounds. but I think you have a lot of your motivations are very similar, and that's you really care about this community, and you're wanting to pull in the same direction. So I think by doing this exercise, I think it'll make your ability as a council member even more effective than you are right now. So the alternative is we just have a dialogue, and I'll help facilitate the conversation if we just want to not do the breakout sessions and go from there. So I think the first thing we need to know from the city council is whether you want to do breakout sessions, 2 of them, or not. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to turn the time back to you to facilitate that conversation if that's something your council members want to weigh in on.
I'm personally open to doing it the way Graham's done it, but any thoughts?
I think breaking out into groups is a great idea. We can speak freely and then bring back our thoughts to the group. And yeah.
I'm fine with that.
I agree.
Okay, Steve gave a thumbs up, so it looks like that's the way we're going to go. I'm going to turn some time over to Morgan really quickly. We do have some challenges with technology, and even just meeting in a group, even in a workshop format, there's always some risk of Brown Act violation. So Morgan's going to talk a little bit about that, but I just want to let the council know that we'll be collecting public comment throughout. And as public comments come in, when there's natural places, I would recommend we stop and listen to comment rather than wait till the very end or hear them at the beginning. I think that would create a more open and transparent meeting if possible. So Angela, our city clerk, is not going to join any of the breakout groups because her and I, and nor will I, will be monitoring the public comments. And Mr. Mayor, I'll let you know when we have those available. Okay?
Sounds good.
So, Morgan, would you like to spend a moment talking about making sure we stay above board?
Thank you, Graham, and Mayor and members of the council. As Graham mentioned, we have an issue that could be a problem when we have these breakout sessions. These sessions will be a recess from the special meeting because we will not have a quorum in any of these groups. That being said, you need to keep your comments strictly related to the topic for each one. Don't mix them up, because what will happen is you will be going into different groups yourselves as council members, and we don't want to create a serial meeting at any point in time. So I've tasked each of the directors under penalty of turning them over to the district attorney's office to keep you guys in compliance with the Brown Act, and they will do their best to keep you reined in, so to speak. But just focus on the one topic. When you come back out, you will be discussing that one topic. Then when you go back in, please don't talk about the first topic, only the second topic. Is that clear? Any questions?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And the police chief does have authority to arrest any one of you for violating that too.
Wow.
Not the elected officials, just the directors. So.
Okay.
No, they should go right to my office and arrest anybody who's in my office.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad I'm not in the breakout room tonight, I guess, huh? So a couple more little housekeeping items. One is my intention from this is once we gather all this information and council provides all this feedback, we'll develop an implementation plan that we'll come back and present to the city council. It'll include deadlines, kind of major milestones, people that are responsible, if there's resources that need to be allocated, discussion of allocation of resources. And then that implementation plan can be used throughout the year as almost a report card or a dashboard, right? So we will present periodically at city council meetings. I'd recommend no more than once a quarter, and depending on early in the year, maybe even it'll take us a while to get geared up. But on a regular basis, we'll come back and report where we're at with that implementation plan. It'll be very clear and concise, sort of a matrix that'll make it easy for you to know where we're at any given moment on the big projects that you have identified. The other advantage that this does for a city council is, let's say mid-year, one of you has this amazing idea and you present it to your colleagues and your colleagues agree. That's absolutely something we need to do. As staff, we need to be honest with you and let you know if we're going to do that, there's things, you may be tapping just the resources we have, we may need to pull something off of the implementation plan in order to accomplish that goal. And so it gives some council some trade-offs of things that you want to do, and it kind of helps hone your focus. So we're not, and I say we are collectively, not just going from item to item to item, which can be really easy to do in our business depending on what email you received the night before. So does that make sense? It helps hold us accountable to a certain degree. So with that, staff presented a report. This report by no means is meant to be what staff's recommendations are in terms of priorities. But we went through kind of a comprehensive exercise with our staff at sort of two different levels, one with our more management staff, and then we put out a survey to all of our staff members, and just to get an idea of what they thought was important. And I'll be honest, what staff may think is important may not be what the public or our typical average residents think are important. But in looking at some of the results, I think it mirrors a lot of the things that I've heard residents talk about. I know you interact with residents far more than I do, and so this is really provided to the city council as maybe a starting point or maybe a way to get the creative juices flowing. But I don't want the council to look at this list and say, oh man, if we don't include fiscal stability, Graham's going to be really upset about that, right? That's not the intention of providing that list. As what I'm hoping to do as part of this breakout session number 1 is just each of your groups, just put all the priorities on a piece of paper. Just start writing down what you think are the big priorities, and then come back with 3 or 4 of the top priorities that you think the city should focus on. Again, can't focus on everything, so what are the most important? And just because something isn't the most important doesn't mean it's not important. It's just not the most important. So I want you to think about, get ideas on a piece of paper and then start going through and identifying the top, like I said, 3, maybe 4. And then once you do that, we'll bring everyone back. Spokesperson from each group will report out. And I'm going to actually have a shared screen, kind of a whiteboard, and I'll just start typing the different responses, and I'll just put those on the piece of paper, and so you can see what those are. And then I'll copy and paste that into the chat, and then we'll get back to the screen so you can see each other while you're talking, and then we'll have a discussion around those priorities. And that's kind of phase 1. Don't think about projects. Don't think about specific tasks. At this point, it's broad. You want to think broad in terms of big priorities for the city. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions before I break you into groups?
No.
Okay. So the role of staff, besides Morgan's sergeant of arms, will also be as your resource. So you may have a question about X, Y, or Z, and staff can help identify whether we can even legally do X, Y, or Z, or maybe we've even done something or are doing something. They're going to be a resource to the council. If council wants to get more of their input, I'm going to let you council members dictate that. But they're there to be your helpers and not dominate the conversation. This really is a council conversation. This first group will actually have the mayor by himself, so you can dominate the whole conversation on your own. Or you can engage with the directors. Okay? So with that, I'm going to open the rooms. Has anyone not done a breakout room? Okay, so I can't show you my screen, but I have the rooms set up. I'm going to hit open all rooms. All you need to do is accept, and you'll just accept, and it'll automatically send you into that room. As I'm going to give our groups only 10 minutes for this phase of the meeting. So this is not a time to tell stories, right? This is a time to get down to business and identify priorities and start having a conversation quickly about these things. I'll check in on the groups at about minute 8 and see how you're doing. If a little more time is needed, then we can give some more time. But kind of budget your thinking for 10 minutes, okay? So Again, no storytelling. Don't talk about how we got here. Let's just talk about moving forward and the big priorities. Does that make sense? Okay. So here we go. I'll see you guys in a little bit, and I'm going to put up actually on the screen a note so people that are on Facebook will know that you're in a breakout session and you'll be coming back shortly. Okay? All right. Here we go. This will be fun. Okay. Are we all back? Okay. It looks like everyone's back. Okay, we're all here. Cool. Great. So, how'd it go? Enough time?
That's great.
All right. Cool. So I'm going to share my screen, and then who would like to go first? Which group would like to go first? Phil, you want to go for it? Are you the spokesperson?
Oh, you say Phil? Yeah.
Yeah, Phil. So what are your top 3 or 4?
So our top three are homelessness, economic development, and fiscal.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate on any of that at all, or no? Am I the only one that's seeing Phil frozen?
Oh, he's having a Super Bowl experience.
Yeah, that's the mayor's office, remember. He probably flipped a switch at home and stopped Phil from speaking.
Very conspiratorial of you.
Or he's between me and Morgan. I don't know. It's like a black hole between the two of us, right? All right, Michelle, you're the new spokesperson. Anything
Okay.
you want to add to that at all?
So the homelessness, we wanted to focus on chronic homelessness, not necessarily the sheltered homeless, the ones in the car, but our main focus should be the ones that are unsheltered, like the ones on Coogan Way, Walter Way, and in various other CVS. Number 2 is economic development, and bringing in more business, more revenue, taxes, and then that kind of morphs into fiscal stability.
Okay. All right. Group 2, Gary and Steve. Who would like to go for your guys?
That's me.
Okay, Steve. What'd you guys come up with?
So we didn't necessarily rank them. We just kind of added more to the whiteboard to talk
Okay.
about.
That's great.
Because I did like staff's survey, but to add to the things would be communication with the public.
Okay.
And I think we actually pulled out public safety as a separate item rather than a sub-item under preserve. And public safety is both police and fire.
Okay. Wonderful.
The other things that we had were part of the staff survey, and we discussed a couple of those.
Was there any one or two of those that popped out that you want to put on this list, that your group wanted to put on this list?
With the infrastructure category, we talked about street improvements in the broad sense.
Okay.
Under economic development and public safety, we talked about enhanced technologies. Under, is it preserve and beautify, a separate, that was a broad category, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We had entry points into the city, help define an image of the city.
Great. Bill, group of 1. What did you come up with?
I had lots of help with staff. So yeah, I came into the session with 3 thoughts that were at the top of my list, and 2 of them, as I'm not surprised, are already talked about: economic development and continued innovations on addressing homelessness. If you want me to go into those specifically, I had some maybe some slightly different variations of what the other groups have talked about.
Well, let's keep it at kind of a big policy level before we go too deep into that. But yeah, elaborate.
Well, economic development, I think that there's, even though the staff does a great job, and I think that there's a lot of streamlined processes, I think there's room to kind of look at the downtown specific plan and the zoning and do a tune-up and really look at it from a different perspective to see what we can do to encourage people to come and invest more money in El Cajon.
Okay. All right.
And then from a homelessness point of view, I like so many of the things that we're doing. Most homelessness, it seems like it's focused on providing people options to get off the streets, and I think we should continue to do that. But I also really like what we did with Wells Park. I think that was a huge success. It was mostly staff-driven, and the staff came up with a plan, and it cost a lot of money. It was a little nerve-wracking, but the plan was implemented, and it was an overwhelming success. The difference between Wells Park now and a month ago is tremendous. So I like to encourage more of those kind of ideas and expanding that process to other parts of the city.
Okay. So before we go any further, one is Phil back. Phil, are you back?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm here.
sounds good. So, Mr. Mayor, we do have a couple public comments. What I'd like to do, what I'd recommend that we do is we kind of take this list and hone it down to 4 or 5. And then, but before we do that, I think there's some value in taking some comments from the public, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to give my last
Oh, I'm sorry.
my last one, and then we'll go to the public comment. The other thing I brought up was talking about innovative ways to assist public safety, meaning police and fire, and public works, to be healthy, happy, and more successful in their jobs. And I know that a lot is being done already, and maybe we're already there and on the right track and doing all the right things. But it strikes me that the environment is so much more hostile and stressful now than it was even a couple of years ago for lots of our employees. And I want to be sensitive to that and make sure that we don't burn people out and lose good employees along the way.
Okay. Great. Okay. So with that, should we take some public comment, do you think?
Please.
Okay. Angela, would you like to, I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a second, and then we'll come back to it in a minute.
Thank you. So yes, we currently have 2 comments. The first one from Sadie Sullivan Greiner. It was a very lengthy comment, and with her permission, I sent it to the mayor and council. You guys received it this morning. But she touched on the following points: fiscal stability, economic development, homelessness, strengthen and preserve and beautify the neighborhoods, city infrastructure, civic engagement, and other priorities. And again, that went out to the council this morning. The next comment is from Barbara Johnson, and Ms. Johnson is representing a nonprofit group called Innocence Lost, and that company brings education about human trafficking. And she wrote, a recent study found that the human trafficking industry has an $810 million underground annual economy. To assume that El Cajon doesn't take part in this modern day slavery would be wrong. When a young person is recruited in El Cajon, trafficked in National City, and arrested in La Jolla, we can see that this is a citywide problem. We all know that El Cajon has a homeless problem, so when a young person on the streets has no way to take care of herself or himself financially, it is very easy to turn to prostituting themselves just to live. Also, today our children find themselves in this COVID year spending so much more time online, between having to go to school online and being asked to stay inside so much more. They are turning to social media for entertainment. Many children are not being unsupervised, and this makes them vulnerable to the traffickers who are waiting 24/7 to lure them into a lifestyle that they could never imagine and would forever change their lives. Our San Diego anti-human trafficking commander tells me that the calls that are coming in for suspected trafficking of our children have gone up 50% with so many children spending so much time online. For those of us in this ministry, we call it modern day slavery, and this needs to stop. We know no parent wants that for their child. There is an urgency to increase training, avenues of awareness and education, and opportunities to provide life-saving safety protocols. I am asking, as a concerned citizen from El Cajon, to take a look and begin to address this issue. And she provided the following solutions: community forums, safety sessions for the community, trafficking training videos for schools, churches, businesses, and service groups. We can save the children of El Cajon from this unsuspecting predator, but we must understand the problem ourselves. And that was her comment. And we have no other comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Graham?
So, council, do you want to talk about the list that you've developed? I'm gonna share that list again, so you have that. And I have priorities spelled right now, so thank you, staff, for helping me out. If the council wanted to focus on 4 or 5, and remember, you probably want to leave kind of almost a miscellaneous category, because there's probably some things that you want to accomplish this next year that may not fit into any of these, right? So, keeping that in mind, ideally, I'll just be honest, it would be difficult for staff to tackle many more than 15 projects. So if you're having 5 priorities, you're down to really about 3 projects per priority. Granted, there may be some really low-hanging fruit that we can accomplish pretty quickly. So it would really depend, but the less priorities you have, the more projects you can work on, but then it limits your ability. So with that, council, I would recommend you as a body identify the top, like I said, 4 or 5 things that you, priority-wise, you really want to focus on for this upcoming year. So, and I'll get it kicked off. I heard almost everyone talk about homelessness and economic development, and then some other commonalities throughout your discussion. But those are 2 that I heard, so I'm going to just highlight those because those are the ones that I heard said by almost all 3 groups. So with that, council, I turn the time back over to you to discuss.
Well, I just have a question about the last public comment talked about human trafficking. That's actually a really important thing to be working on, but I don't even have a sense of how big this thing is and whether or not that's reasonable to make that a priority, or is that already a priority of the police department, so it's not something that we should focus on.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think it is a priority of our police department, and we stay on top of it. In fact, the DA just put out a great video, actually for fire department personnel, kind of recognizing human trafficking in kind of their everyday encounters. But if this is where the next phase of, if public safety, for example, were one of the priorities you wanted to focus on, one of the projects, and this would be a really low-hanging fruit, is for us to agendize an item where we bring in some experts and we educate the council and the public on human trafficking issues that are occurring region-wide and some of the things that we're working on that we can share. So that would be again a pretty low-hanging fruit for us to work on. Right?
Public safety would be the overarching principle, and then we'd break it into smaller bites.
Correct.
Well, I think public safety would be a good thing to focus on, but we'll open to other thoughts.
Yeah, I think in each of these, we're looking to advance the ball rather than plug holes or fill gaps. I think we're looking to move forward. And it might take money, we don't know. I guess that's the second part of it is, this is our dream list. Certainly, if you were to ask the public, they would probably put homelessness and its impact on the city as either the number one or the number two thing. So that's a good list. Personally, from the public safety, what would our police and fire departments say? Man, if we had this, it would cut in half the time that we do this, and that would allow us to do more of this. I think that's kind of the big picture that I'm looking for in public safety from both police and fire. But I don't know, because they might say, well, we're not really structured to handle the kind of improvements that maybe we want or something. I don't know. That's a different thing. Economic development, I think most people would say, yeah, let's keep the city growing. It's kind of like the old university idiom, publish or perish. You got to keep moving forward. So I think we're on a good track so far.
Okay. Councilmember Ortiz.
Yeah, agree with everything Councilmember Goebel said, and the mayor. Homelessness is by far the most communication I get from our residents. So I think that if we don't make that a priority, which it has been a priority, and I think part of this is to maybe reestablish and put pen to paper of what our priorities are. So I think that it's been a priority for us, and we need to keep it that way. Economic development, Main Street, extending Main Street, Parkway Plaza, empty lots around the city, which are magnets for homeless encampments. I think that's all, making it easy for developers. I think those are hallmarks of El Cajon that we push for, and I think we need to establish it once again. I like the idea of communication with the public. I think we're already starting to do that with social media and tell the story to our residents. So yeah, along with, and by far, public safety. I think that if we can make our police and fire more efficient, it's going to not only relieve stress on those men and women, but we're going to be able to accomplish more for our residents. So, yeah.
Ms. Mitchell or Mr. Kendrick?
Yeah, I agree with Phil on this. Public safety is really number one, because we're not going to get new businesses to come to El Cajon unless they feel safe. People aren't going to want to live and shop in El Cajon unless they feel safe. And public safety is also is in my mind includes the homelessness, which I guess we've got a huge percentage of police and fire right now responding to the homeless. And the economic development is the thing that has to pay for the public safety. And so all three of those work hand in hand in making El Cajon a better place if we address those issues.
Okay. Ms. Mitchell?
I agree. I think that if you had to break everything down into circles, and the main focus would be in the center, you'd have homeless, economic development, and public safety, because you're not going to have good businesses if you got the homeless. But you can't have you've got to address the homeless. You've got to address making more money, but people don't want to spend their money if they have to step over a homeless person to get to the store. Public safety, again, people are afraid to come out of their houses at night. And that shouldn't be. So I think those three should be the top, and they're all sort of intermingled with one another. There's aspects of each one that affects the other one.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how they all do correlate with each other, huh? So it sounds like I heard all of you talk about those three. The three priorities that I highlighted or bolded, just to see if we can expand the list, and we'll go the reverse order. Councilmember Mitchell, if you were to vote for two other ones, what would the two that you would vote for?
I think that I would do fiscal stability and city, I guess, civic engagement, getting the community involved, because we can't go forward by ourselves. It's going to take the city, it's going to take all the residents in some form or fashion coming together in just even little small, minute amounts to make it better. Teaching your kids not to litter, having things picked up, don't dump your mattresses on the sidewalks. Those all little things can add up to the big priorities.
Okay. Mr. Kendrick, we'll go in reverse order from what we just heard you guys.
I see enhanced technologies as kind of a subset of the public safety. And I think there are things that we can do, and actually of the economic development.
Mr. Kendrick, I'm going to give you a pass or give you one extra. I really see the technologies as a tool to help us accomplish these things, not as a priority in and of itself. So I'm actually going to take enhanced technologies off the list, because I think it will end up being a tool, depending on what goals you come up with. We're going to be it's either work smarter or harder, right? And I think the technology will help us be more innovative in the smarter part. So I'm just going to take that off the list, because I think shouldn't be a priority in and of itself. So
okay, then
facilitator's prerogative there. So what are your other two that you would add?
I think communication with the public. I'm finding out that a lot of our citizens don't know what we're doing.
Okay. And any other one you'd like to add?
And I think the image of the city and entry points. Okay. So when they come down to drive down Johnson Avenue to turn off at Parkway Plaza to do some shopping, that, it all looks good there. It's inviting and not scary.
Okay. I believe, Mr. Ortiz, you were the next to go. What do you think?
So if I had to go with two more, fiscal stability, it's got to be one. We're stewards of the taxpayers' money. And then image of the city, beautification, enhancing those entry points. I wish I could choose all of them, but I got to go with those two.
Okay. Mr. Goebel, what do you think?
I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to say the public just expects us to have good fiscal stability. Of course, it's a priority. I think it's just something that we should just automatically be doing. So I'm going to weasel out of that so I can get two more.
Well, and Mr. Goebel, the reality is, if staff's doing its job, we're trying to help figure out ways to be fiscally stable. In fact, you notice that was the number one item that when we surveyed staff, and you saw the one public comment that, this is sort of executive thinking. This is from the entry-level position up to me. I think we're all focused on that, because I think you're exactly right, Mr. Goebel. This is something that if we're not creating a fiscally stable city, then you probably shouldn't have us around. So,
can I get one back then?
Maybe. Let's see what Mr. Goebel says first, though.
Actually, I'll yield, Mr. Ortiz. I'll let you have another one.
Well, if fiscal stability is already a principle, which I just want to make sure it's there, my other one would be infrastructure, street improvements. So my two would be image of the city, entry points, and infrastructure, street improvements.
Okay.
Okay, so
Mr.
now
Goebel, back to you.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that.
Now that I'm going to play with words, I'm going to play with words one more time. I'm going to put image of the city entry points as a subsection of infrastructure street improvements. That's one of the things that you can do with infrastructure, is how you beautify your entry points. So my two are going to be communication with the public and infrastructure street improvements.
Okay. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, a lot of these can be combined. I can see how infrastructure, street, image of the city entry points can merge with economic development.
Mhm.
Because if you take the entry points and you are able to bring in new investors to beautify that area, you'll be able to make more improvements than we ever could on our own. But having said that, so I like infrastructure. I'm sorry. I like the entry points, and I like the infrastructure street improvements. So.
Okay. So council, what you're left with right now is homelessness, economic development, public safety, kind of this broad infrastructure, street improvements, and entry points. That's 4. If you want to add communication with the public / civic engagement, that could be something you could, I think staff has the capacity to take that on if that's something you would like to add. Or maybe you want to really focus on these 4 items in the upcoming year and not as much on the communication side. I'm looking for some direction from council on that.
Okay, I think we do need to sort of address the health of the employees. If we've got employees who are not happy, we've got a high turnover. I don't know if we do, but if that's an issue, maybe we need to kind of look into that. That would be part of the, I don't know what it would be a part of.
Let me preempt that a little bit. I think there's some value in having a miscellaneous where there's just sort of some random things that don't fit into any category.
Right.
And I think I would like if you guys can all have a miscellaneous thing that you would like done in the next year and that you can all agree on, right? I mean, Michelle, if you want to build a rocket ship to Mars, I'm hoping your 4 other colleagues won't go along with that because I don't know how we're going to afford that, right? But if the mayor's kind of put that out as a miscellaneous thing, can we hold that in abeyance for the time being and come back to that? Because I think there's some value in each of you having sort of just something that you wanna champion, and your colleagues get behind it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the question is, do we want to include communication with the public / civic engagement as part of the list that you're going to explore next, or do we want to just keep it off for right now?
No, I think we need to communicate with the public. I mean, I know most all of the council, I think all of us are on social media. We're sharing city posts. We're trying to get the word out. I know I engage with citizens all the time on social media. And I know some of the others do as well. I think that's really important because, I mean, right now we've got 17 people watching this. Out of how many people in the city? There's only 17. Why? And I don't mean that rudely, but I mean, what more could we have done to advertise this meeting and advertise our city council and get more people involved so that they know what's going on, they get the facts from us, and it's not necessarily, what somebody posted on Facebook that isn't necessarily true. And how do we get that? Because, I feel like I don't say anything, but I mean, I feel inside that I have to defend El Cajon all the time. I feel like I'm defending our city. I'm defending the council. I'm defending what we're doing. And because citizens want to know what's going on, but they don't seem to either not see what we're putting out there or it's not enough. I don't know. Just my 2 cents.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
You know,
Well,
I think
Go ahead, Gary.
I think it'd be helpful maybe if some of the staff could, at least for me, kind of tutor me on Nextdoor and Facebook on how to reach the public. And I think that helps us all on, learning these technologies that would be helpful for us to communicate with the public on what's going on with the city.
Okay. Mr. Goebel, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Michelle, about the 17. I know you would agree with me that these are the right 17 people because they're engaged and they're interested. How do we get another 17 beyond the right 17 that we have with us? Sometimes I turn to close friends, family members, and I say, did you know? And they say, no, I didn't. In fact, if you weren't a council member, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know when America on Main Street is, when Haunt Fest is, that there's a Duck Day at Wells Park. And so the communication with the public, the civic engagement, do with reevaluating what we're doing now, and is it a good fit? We must recognize some people just want to be left alone. They just want the city to do its work, do good work, and no news is good news. And there's some value in that too.
Yeah.
I think we also have to be mindful that there are a lot of citizens who don't use social media. I have engineers at work who do not use Facebook. I find it amazing, but they don't use Facebook. There are a lot of older citizens that don't use Facebook or Twitter or Nextdoor, some of these others. So how are we going to get the information out? We have a newsletter that comes out. I haven't seen it in a while. I know that they can go online and go to the city website and see what's going on there. But again, that takes technology. If you can't afford the technology or you don't know how to use the technology, you're kind of left in the dark. And for a lot of people, maybe in my district, they can't afford the technology to get on. I don't know, but we need to find a way to get this information out to the public. And maybe we should look into how are other cities of our size with some of our similar issues, how do they get their information out? And how are their residents knowing what's going on? I mean, they're finding out about Haunt Fest, and they're finding out about America on Main Street, when we have, 40,000, 45,000 people? Now, granted, a lot of those are kids, but how are they finding out? And I know we do a big push on that.
Well, I can tell you for America on Main Street, starting in 2019, we sent a postcard to every resident, right? So something went physically in the mailbox. But if people are like me, I don't look at 3/4. I skim through. If it's a bill, I pull it aside. If it's not, it all goes in the trash, right?
Right.
So, and we do publish. Actually, here's the gateway draft form. I'm editing it, doing a final edit right now. But that only goes out quarterly, right? So we don't have a local newspaper that used to be sort of the thing that would get the news out to people.
And the thing is that, yes, we put out those postcards for America on Main Street, but we can't do that for every city council meeting. We can't do that for the cost would be, prohibitive for the city to be fiscally stable. If we had to send out a piece of mail every time we wanted to announce something. So I was really hoping that we would get some comments from citizens saying, hey, what about this? This type of method would work for me. So that's what I'd like to see.
Okay.
I'd still like to see communication with the public on the list so that it at least gets discussed. Yeah. I'm not sure that it's something that we will prioritize, implement.
Right.
but we live in a different age. When we grew up, it was just kind of, no news is good news. But in today's instant access of news, I think people have a different view of government now. And there's almost this expectation that government somehow might provide value to people, that it will be transparent. If there's a call for transparency, it means people want to know what's going on. And so I guess that's kind of still a discussion. Are we doing it correctly? Is it enough? Are we doing the right things? Because it is a different world where we almost have to look at our government as a quasi product or service to say, what value are we adding to people's lives? And I'll tell you, city staff adds value every day. And I think that's worth tooting your horn once in a while. You know, we had a police officer stop a vehicle recently that resulted in a very large amount of drugs taken off the street. And that adds value to the community. And that lifts up the effectiveness and the image of our police department as our protectors. And so I guess I'd still like to keep it on as a discussion. Are we communicating the right things? Do we need to?
Okay. So,
You know,
go ahead, Ms. Metro.
let me just throw in quick. I think that we do have email as a source of communication. And I know that some citizens want to, how about getting an email from everyone that they could sign up for? And I think maybe we need to revisit that and kind of maybe do a push on that. So once a quarter, send out a postcard or something and get people to say, here, go on here and give us your email and we will keep you updated. I think that an email list would be good because everybody's communicating by email right now. So they're getting more and more used to that form of communication. Whereas before we picked up the phone or we see them in person. Now email is becoming more prevalent. And so I think citizens might want to use email. And so maybe we need to push that a little bit again. I know I get them and I think it's great. And I enjoyed getting those emails before I became on the council.
Great. So I count 5 things that you guys want to talk about in terms of priorities. I put that in the chat. Maybe staff, if you can jot those down or take a screenshot of that or a picture. When we break into groups, that'll be sort of the next topic is what are 2 to 3, maybe 4 different specific goals or projects or tasks that you would like associated with these 4 different priorities. And some of it may be we don't know, and we want some, staff to come back with some more information about that. So, I mean, that could be something. One of the goals that you come back. It doesn't have to be a fully baked plan because that will happen throughout this year as we get some direction. So in some cases it may be very, we want to, I'll just throw out, we want a homeless shelter with 342 beds built by the end of the year. I mean, it's very specific, right? And some could be, we don't understand what our needs are and we'd like to study that more and come back with a discussion, a workshop where we can talk about communication with the public. That could be, as an example, that could be what the task is. So for this will take a little bit more time. If you were to give each of these 8 minutes, that's 40 minutes. So I'm gonna allocate 30 minutes, and then let's see where we're at. I'll kind of check in on you guys and see where you're at. It'd be nice to wrap up with about 2 hours because I notice historically people's attention spans start waning after 2 hours on these types of things. So that's the goal. So I'm going to give you guys a lot of time to sort of dive in, but you can't 40 minutes or 30 minutes to talk about all this isn't a lot of time in reality. So again, no storytelling, know how we got here. I think you got to get right to the meat of the topic. We have no public comments at this point, so if council's ready, we're ready to jump in.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to bring you guys into rooms again.
Wings.
Good for you. All right, we're all back. Excellent. So, who wants to go first? There's a lot. I mean, here's the challenge. There's a lot of information that I think was shared, and so as your scribe, I'm going to struggle, but I'll do my best to get some information up. So I'm gonna share my screen again, and then whatever group wants to go first, we'll start writing out priorities for those different category or projects for those different categories. So, so group one, do you want to go first? That was Bill and Phil's group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Phil,
So
why
for
don't you start?
homelessness, what were some of the things that you guys talked about?
Yeah, so I'm going to tackle homelessness, and my idea basically is, like we said, focusing on the chronic homeless and more along the lines of stepping up enforcement towards the dealers that deal these addictive drugs to our homeless. Everyone always asks, why are there so many homeless in El Cajon? Why are there so many homeless in El Cajon? And I'm not convinced, but I have a suspicion that it's because there's a lot of dealers here in the city, and the users don't move far from their dealers. And I think that if we begin stepping up enforcement in some way, shape, or form, partnering with, a federal organization like the DEA or the DA, reputation will get out that it's harder to deal and operate in El Cajon. And I think it's timely because the county is introducing all these deregulations. They just introduced a needle exchange program, which means it's going to be easier to do drugs. And so I think it's timely for us to do this. I mean, we had, I think recently, an 11-year-old walk in on his mother and uncle dead from an overdose. We had just recently the 87 pounds of meth and fentanyl seized. And so I think if we were able to have the word spread through the dealers, it would make it harder for people to operate in El Cajon. Similar to the pot shop, we've taken a hard stance on illegal pot shops, marijuana shops, and they don't open up in El Cajon anymore. So that would be and that's more homelessness and public safety, kind of a conjunction. And I know there's a lot of barriers and maybe some ideas that can be tossed around. I know we need to talk with Chief and Chief Moulton, but that in essence is the idea.
Okay. Any other ideas related to homelessness that you guys came up with?
I think that was the center point of our discussion.
Okay.
We did talk a little bit about looking at ways that we can help bring more mental health type resources to the homeless, specifically by looking at the possibility of increasing our PERT presence here in El Cajon.
Okay.
And we, frankly, really don't know who pays for that. I know that the county pays for that, but I don't know how you would go about getting them to agree to give us more resources.
Okay. Let's stay on the topic of homelessness, and we'll just go down to group two. What did you guys talk about related to homelessness?
Are we group two?
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay, thanks. I think now that Mesa has stepped into the homeless resource thing, it might be time to start looking at coordination with other cities. We want to make sure that we're not playing a game Okay, now you go to that city. Okay, now you go to that city. Now go back to that city. Now go back to that city. That somehow there's some coordination that we're not canceling each other. We're actually multiplying each other.
Yeah.
We did talk about watching county pilot programs that are occurring now. And I think I'll let the chief decide if he wants to talk about those. And also just we want to be sensitive to morale among all city staff as they work on this issue, because it is a constant presence. And whether you're in HR or fire or police or public works or finance, the issue of homelessness affects every department in the city. We are concerned about its impact on staff as well.
Thanks. Hey, Mr. Gove, I'm gonna editorialize just for a second. You saw the public comment that came over earlier, and there was a bit of a critique of some of our staff's perception of homelessness. And I think it's important for the public to recognize that we are literally in the trenches. We are in the sewer ditches. We are cleaning up piles of feces on a daily basis. So they may be tainted a little bit. And the comment was that we're a little insensitive to the plight of those that are facing homelessness. But that's what their daily reality is for many of our staff.
And that does kind of come back to communication with the public somehow. They don't know that.
Yeah.
They don't have the whole story. We also talked about, help me, Michelle, what?
Like transitional storage?
Transitional storage is an option.
I think that we talked about the county programs, burnout programs for officers who have to deal with the homeless all the time, and breaking chronic homelessness from transient versus homeless, which I think we kind of broke out. And then shelters in other cities, which you did bring up. I don't think that El Cajon should bear the burden of handling the homeless crisis in East County. ECTLC does a great job, but I don't think that they should be the only place in town. Although I understand citizens' concern about making it attractive. And that's something that you hear sometimes, like, oh, you don't want to make it attractive. But again, if we had public restrooms, they wouldn't be leaving their bodily waste for public servants or public staff to clean up. So I don't know, it's public restrooms, transitional storage, and then sharing the wealth of services with other cities, and making sure that we're not the place for them to go, but there are shelters in La Mesa or shelters in Santee, and that's going to take coordination from those city councils and their staff.
We did talk about the feeling of helplessness sometimes at a city level of county and state laws. Specifically, Prop 57 or early release, those kind of things. The public doesn't know that our hands are tied in that area. And
Exactly.
Education could certainly say, we're definitely trying here.
Okay. I like it. And then, Mr. Mayor, I think, Gary, you were the group of one.
Yeah, Yasmin, you have the notes on this?
Yes, I put them on the chat. If you click on the chat bubble, they should pop up.
So Yasmin, for me, it's hard to kind of do the chat and this. Can you just read down what the items that you came up with for homelessness?
Definitely. We had trash cleanup. We had working out with groups such as ECTLC and social services to try to get homeless in available programs. We had breakup homeless camps, community participation in public spaces, and having more events similar to the 9/20/20 day quarterly, where we have public community participation in public spaces.
Did I miss anything? So some of this is things that are already kind of occurring, right? But some of them are new things and some pretty bold approaches. I think there's some value in kind of going through all the lists before you identify which ones, but start thinking about if there were 2 or 3 or 4 of those you want to focus on, what would those be? So let's move on to economic development, because I think you need to see the whole list before you start whittling things down or identifying priorities. So we'll go in reverse order this time. Gary's group, what did you guys come up with in terms of economic development?
Okay, Yasmin, you have the list.
Sure. So we had mixed-use opportunities for commercial and the first floor and residential on top for areas. We had encouraged development around the transit center, utilizing the transit district specific plan, and also development in downtown for the downtown specific plan, offering developers incentives, having following the adopted streetscape plan, similar, and working on our smart growth projects for El Cajon Boulevard and Main Street, affordable housing element, and giving a priority to senior living, and also Wi-Fi access.
Okay. Let's go group 1. So I guess Bill and Phil's group, what did you guys come up with in terms of economic development?
Well, we're thinking about asking for a comprehensive economic development strategy that would be useful for El Cajon, a document that identifies goals, possible incentives, areas of focus, and areas of deficiencies that would help us capitalize on our assets. And I was specifically thinking about several vacant properties at the key intersections of our city. I'm interested to know if there are any zoning policies that are inhibiting development at these sites. For example, perhaps there are opportunities to look for at the boundaries of the downtown specific plan.
Okay.
And we also talked about the possibility of asking for this comprehensive document, that perhaps we should look into the possibility of bringing a consultant in that might help us to set our priorities and help us guide us in the right direction.
Okay. So that plan would kind of, I mean, we heard Gary talk about, developer incentives and some other areas, sort of implementation of our specific plans. That could be almost wrapped up into that overall plan, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then Michelle and Steve, what did you guys come up with?
Michelle, you want to weigh in on that?
Well, we talked about business development, of course, sales tax break for new businesses.
Michelle, what do you mean by business development?
We don't have any of the staff here. I just sort of took real quick notes.
Maybe a group that want to weigh in, help with that. What does that mean, business development?
I can chime in at this point. I think, how do we tell people of the opportunities in El Cajon?
Okay. So we're really attraction, right? We're an attraction effort?
Yes. When I was in my working career, frequently we would get faxes and emails from developers saying, hey, I've got this piece of property here. Are you interested in putting one of your stores in this location? developers were contacting us trying to do that. Do we have a communication plan, or should we have a communication plan dealing with how do we promote El Cajon to the right audiences? We also talked about a little bit on the planning side, making it easy to do this. We do a great job already, but it has to do with speed. Time is money for developers. We do a good job, but time is money, and make sure that the regulations and the policies related to speed
getting worse
is appropriate.
Okay. Anything else for economic development?
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
Steve, we talked about new businesses and new attract new uses and of already existing areas. One thing that just came to mind, it would be kind of cool if we could get an area sort of like Austin, you know, where they have buskers and music, and it's kind of sort of become this music little mecca, or Asheville, North Carolina. You know, Asheville's a little town, and they have some great musicians coming in and just busking, and people come to see them, and so they go out to the theaters, or the restaurants and the stores around. If we could come up with a plan and expand it a little bit, we're not El Cajon anymore. You know, we are El Cajon, but we're not just this little town anymore. Started in, you know, the 40s. We're now coming up. We're getting to be a big city now.
Okay. All right. That's all of you guys on that one. Let's hit public safety. Let's start with Michelle and Steve. You guys have not gone first yet, right?
Sounds good. We did talk about what technologies that aren't in use could assist fire and police that we should look at.
License plate readers, CCTV cameras.
Okay. Perfect. Anything else?
No, we kind of listened to a lot and learned a lot, but I think I could sum it up in that.
Okay. That's a comprehensive project, so I like that. Gary, what'd you come up with?
Yasmin, you have the list?
Yes, I do. So we have enhanced public safety technology, tracking requests, response times, and innovation. And then also to evaluate the greater need for personnel and equipment as we grow in population.
Okay. Bill and Phil.
I think ours discussion was focused around the whole enforcement on dealers and partnering with other agencies. That was really the core of it. Yep, overlap.
Okay, perfect. All right. Communication, civic engagement, that realm. Let's start with Gary. What do you guys have?
Yasmin?
Having a city newsletter, and that being emailed to registered households and members and all the kids in the school district, similar to what we did in 9/20/20 Day. Social media and postcards to all the households.
Okay. Steve and Michelle?
We talked about the reality that most people probably don't engage if things are going well. That only when things aren't going well do you engage. And then we talked about, so how do we target the right group? Rather, there are two different philosophies. A splash, what we used to call spray and pray in the old days, just throw it all out there and hope somebody, gets a hold of it. versus more of a rifle, a pinpoint approach to a targeted audience. And so evaluation of audience would probably be trying to sum up there. Michelle, anything to add?
Yeah, we talked about a broad public communication plan. And I think that that would be helpful to know, what is it that we want to get out, and then how are we going to implement that? Because, currently right now, we have approximately 12 people watching these meetings. 12 people out of 105,000?
Hey, Michelle, and half of those 12 are city staff.
Exactly. So how do we get more people engaged? And that was the bigger question was, like Steve said, okay, those are the right, at one time, at the time we were talking with 17 people, it goes, those are the right 17 people. Now, how do we get another right 17 people? And that's kind of the issue is, what more can we do?
Okay. Bill and Phil, do you guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, so ours was really leveraging technology and mainly on social media. Social media is a powerful tool, and it takes little effort or not as much effort to make a huge impact. And for example, I don't know if anyone knows this, but one of our police officer dogs went viral because of a little clip of a ball bouncing in front of the camera and then him zooming by. We worked with Chief Moulton and Graham to get the Astrea messages that the helicopter is speaking from their megaphone from the helicopter onto our police Twitter. And so our ideas were more along the line. Marisol had a good example as well, where people stand in line hours to take pictures in front of a mural painted wing. I'm not saying we paint wings on one of our buildings, but just to create a hashtag for our events where parents can post their kids doing this, or a new park, or our new hotels and the great food we have there. And so we kind of morphed into hiring some kind of a social media consultant to help us tell the story of the great things in El Cajon, bringing in consumers to El Cajon, to our businesses, telling the story to our residents of the great things that we're doing, new businesses that are coming in, and it could be a powerful thing to expand our online presence, gain followers, so we can tell that story.
Okay. All right, you guys are cruising. Let's start with Steve and Michelle on infrastructure, street improvements, entry points, that kind of big broad category that you guys want to focus on. What are some of the thoughts that came out of your group discussion?
Well, go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, we talked about needing resources for code enforcement. Currently, I believe we have one code enforcement officer. He's a little overwhelmed. And I think that was something, a possible need for another code enforcement officer. And then we had talked a little bit about one of the comments from the citizens was, I guess from Sabi, I guess was her name, about the shuttle. I like that idea of having a shuttle that would take that route around El Cajon and hit downtown for the theater, for the Magnolia when it opens up. And then maybe they can take it over to, I don't know, maybe we get Carl Strauss built in someplace over by the car dealership and someplace over, or, job centers. Just having that short-term, short bus that just kind of goes around. I happen to like the trolley look or the cable car look. It's a little kitschy, like Old Town, but, something fun that people would want to just maybe drive around El Cajon, drive around that big circular route to see what's going on in El Cajon.
Okay.
Of course, we have to have something for them to look at.
Okay, I like it. What else? Anything
Steve?
else?
we talked about the difficulty code enforcement currently has with the resources, that they're more reactive than proactive. And yet we also talked about from a safety point of view, when a particular part of town doesn't look good, it invites a broken window
Right.
theory element, blight, and crime can come in when things don't look good. But we wanted to focus specifically on the entry points,
Okay.
perhaps for more proactive code enforcement.
Gary, what's your group come up with?
Jasmine?
All right, so we have in our list landscape and beautify entry points utilizing the same standards of the transit district specific plan, and also improvements to storm drain channels, external access to prevent illegal entry.
So say that last one again.
Improvements in storm drain channels, external access to prevent illegal entry.
So pollution.
No, actually, that's supposed to.
Keeping
the
people
homeless
from
from getting
hanging out
in there,
inside. Okay, yeah, okay.
Our fire chief said that may not work because of the he's seen people get in even when you have the metal bars, and it makes it tough for the firefighters to get in because they don't know if there's someone in there if there's a fire. So maybe there's some way we can do it, but it was his opinion that they would overcome almost anything we did.
Okay.
So he was very helpful on his advice on that.
Okay. Anything else for that group?
No.
Okay, Bill and Phil, what did you guys come up with?
Phil, why don't you take it?
A lot of our discussion, I think, staff, if you want to help me out, was overlapping with regard to our previous topic, the business development. Vince, am I correct in that discussion? Is it kind of, we talked about our enhancing the entry points, but in conjunction with coming up with an economic development plan.
Yeah, that's correct, Phil. We talked about how realizing certain economic development goals would bring with it improved infrastructure and street improvements, how re-examination of some of the specific plan boundaries might leave out entry points in the economic development thing. But certainly the infrastructure and street improvements would come along with greater economic development.
Aptly put. Thank you, Vince. We like to combine things and knock out two birds with one stone. So we're really efficient over here in Group 1.
Apparently. I have a feeling Vince was in your group. Is that right? Cool. All right. That's all. That's everything. What about any miscellaneous things that you guys wanted to talk about while we're here right now?
A spaceship to Mars.
Spaceship to Mars.
Well,
That's Michelle's idea, I thought.
yeah, I had one.
Yes, sir.
I think we need to have an election integrity ordinance where people have to prove that they live in the district that they're running in. Because people have to prove that, they live in a certain area, even for, for the school district, what school they go to, or for Little League. And I think that's really important given what's happened in the last election.
Phil, do you have anything specifically? Kind of a miscellaneous idea?
Yeah, mine was, and this could go under economic development, but to come up with some kind of a process for when businesses want to do something and we say, no, you can't do it, but it seems reasonable, to have that go up the chain to see if we can if there's an ordinance that we can alter. I'll give you an example. A gym wanted to recently expand outdoors permanently in a space, but we didn't have some kind of an ordinance in place to allow that. But the city have outdoor gym equipment. And so some kind of a process to put in place to catalog those potential things that businesses come to us with, and catalog them and create a work group. I don't know, once a quarter or once a year to say, okay, we don't have anything, but can we change something to allow this?
Okay. Well, can't spell catalog right, but okay.
Yeah.
I'll come back on that. Michelle, anything? Any miscellaneous ideas?
Something that comes to mind is something that came out recently about the human trafficking. And I know that that's kind of a hot topic, but I think that it's talked enough about, enough in El Cajon, and it is concern for a lot of women. Just human trafficking / safety for our women and, girls or whatever. But I think that we need to be cognizant of it and make sure that we provide, and it goes along with public safety, but provide insight for kids to know what they should look out for, even educating adults, seniors, educating them on what to look out for and how you can help and, that type of deal. I think we should at least address it.
Steve, any thoughts?
Two things. I think as part of economic development, we have to kind of look good. And so signage. I'm not a big fan of flashing signs at night in the city. The other one is we should, I think we have an opportunity post-COVID to help these businesses like gyms and restaurants extend what they're doing now. And that could be maybe even on a seasonal or a temporary basis to say, during the month of June, you can have parking lot outdoor seating like you did during COVID. I don't, there's more to do there, but I think they've made some great, they've already bought equipment for outdoor stuff. So why not let them continue to use it post-COVID in some situations that staff recommends?
Yeah, and the end of the world didn't happen when people started dining on sidewalks, right?
Right. And it does extend both their indoor and outdoor facilities on a temporary basis even further to help them recover, make up some lost ground.
Yep. Mr. Mayor, any thoughts? You mentioned sort of the mental wellness and some programs around there.
Yeah, we thought that would be both under public safety and under homelessness. I think they both have a synergy. The one thing I wanted to say about homelessness that we didn't mention was I was really proud of what happened in the Wells Park area. I think I mentioned it before. And I think we should look at some of those strategies and see how we can bring some of those strategies to other areas of the city and maybe some of the other parks. Because I thought it was really successful.
Yeah. Okay. So I can't count that fast unless you want to take like a 3-minute break, but there's a lot of things up here. Angela's told me we have no public comments, so this would be a natural place to have that, but there are no comments at this time. On homelessness, it seems like we have a lot of things here. Some of them are pretty low hanging, right? Like watching what's happening at a county pilot programs that we're kind of already doing some of that already. Are there a few things that you guys really want to focus on in this upcoming year? And I'll start. So maybe Michelle, if you were to pick two things on this entire list, what would you pick?
I think coordination with other cities.
Okay.
And I think I like to step up on enforcement of dealers of drugs.
Okay.
I think drugs is a big issue.
Okay. Phil, what would you pick?
The exact same. Step up on enforcement of dealers in coordination with other cities, a regional approach.
Okay. Steve, what are your thoughts?
I think the public would say trash cleanup, clean up homeless camps. And I think the public would probably say step up enforcement. They kind of go together, but certainly if dealers are more prevalent than I think they are, then that would certainly cut off some of the attraction.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. So the stepping up enforcement, that one right there, and then the clean up trash.
Yeah,
clean up homeless camp. Okay.
I think that's what the public would have me say.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, thoughts?
Yeah, I like number one, number two, and then the last one.
Okay. So number one, which the step up enforcement?
Yeah, enforcement, mental health,
Okay.
and then using the strategies we use in Wells Park to clean up other areas of the city.
Okay. And then Gary, I skipped you. I'm sorry.
I'd say step up enforcement of dealers and trash cleanup and cleanup of homeless camps.
Okay. All right. So it's pretty obvious that the enforcement, the drug dealer enforcement idea, which is unique, right? It's pretty innovative. I've never really heard of a city doing that with that kind of a pronounced approach. So that's an innovative idea. And then I kind of see coordinating with other cities and cleaning up trash are kind of the next two big ones. And a lot of the other things kind of fit into that. So why don't, if there's consensus from the council, can we focus on these three things as part of the implementation plan?
Yes.
Yep, I'm good with that.
Yep.
Okay.
Because I think if we get those done, we can satisfy Bill's last one, the Wells Park strategies. If we can do the upper ones, I think it will fall into Bill's strategies down below.
Yeah. Okay.
I realize step up enforcement of drug dealers has its complications. You know, when you're talking about, we arrest them and then they go get booked and then they're out the next day. I realize there's some complications there, but we should at least, as a council, make that a policy effort.
Yeah, Steve, thank you. I think it's worth exploring the constraints of it. I think that there could be something there. Thank you. That's perfectly said, Steve.
Yeah, we may come back and the chief and our city attorney may say unconstitutional, guys, right? And so, but we need to go through the exercise, right?
I have a question on that. So in some cities where they had a high prostitution problem, they posted the pictures of the Johns. So
I think
can
that's
we do that
getting,
with the drug dealers?
I think, Michelle, that's the kind of stuff that we'll come back and explore. I mean, when you get this, we're not going to give you a package with a bow. We're going to make you guys delve into some of those policy questions. So you're going to have a chance to talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to economic development. We started with Michelle, so we're going to end with Michelle this time. Is that fair? Okay, so Gary, we ended with you last time. What if you were to pick two of these? What would you pick?
Um, I would say offer developer incentives and a comprehensive economic development plan.
Okay. Bill, your thoughts?
A comprehensive economic development plan and zoning policies.
Okay. Steve.
I would say business development attraction. I can't see the second half of that. Attraction marketing plan. Yeah, that's kind of like a comprehensive economic development plan.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a sub-bullet under comprehensive economic development plan.
Yeah, let's mix those together. I think that's what you would get out of that plan,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
Can you scroll back up? There you go. No, actually, I'm just going to do that.
Okay. Phil.
Comprehensive economic development plan, and I'm going to go with the zoning policies that inhibit development.
Okay. Michelle, last but not least.
Comprehensive economic and zoning policies.
Okay.
Because I think some of these others would fall under that. Mixed use development would come under comprehensive.
Okay. So, and I really think that, yeah, I think the developer incentive actually will come under the comprehensive too, because I honestly don't know what would that incentive be, right? We need to probably study that and understand what that gap is. So, I think those are kind of the two big things with incentives coming underneath that, if that's okay. Does that work?
Yep.
Okay. Steve, you've been in the middle twice now. So, do you want to go first? There's not much on this list.
I am a middle child, so I'm used to going in the middle.
Okay.
Middle children are more competitive. Let's see. Probably, if I had to pick two, it'd be the first two.
Okay. Is it fair to say that'll probably be everyone's? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So, Steve, that was kind of a throwaway. I'll let you go first again.
Oh, okay.
So we're down to communication, civic engagement.
I think broad communication plan, what to share and how to do it. And probably leveraging technology. Those would be two big idea kind of things to me.
Yeah, those are big ideas. Okay. Cool. Phil, what do you think?
I concur with Steve. Communication plan and leveraging technology.
Okay. Bill, what do you think?
I agree.
Michelle.
I agree.
Come on, Michelle, don't agree. Okay. Gary, what do you think?
I agree too.
Okay.
Woo woo!
You guys are awesome, actually. City managers don't usually tell their council members publicly that they're awesome, but you guys are pretty
Thank you. Thank
pretty
you.
impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
Because we're late. It's because it's late and we're hungry, Graham.
Is that what we did? Where are you away?
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
All right. Okay. The last before we get to the miscellaneous, and we do have one public comment. So let's finish this list up, and then we should hear the public comment before you guys vote on anything. Gary, how about you? Let's start with you first.
I'll say, well, let's see, attracting businesses near entry points.
Okay.
And landscape beautify entry points, rely on specific plan standards.
Okay. Steve?
I'm going to say landscape by entry points and proactive code around entry points.
Okay.
Defense and offense.
Okay. Phil?
Attracting businesses near entry points. And that's it. I'm just going to stick with one.
Okay. Michelle?
See, I think entry points is the main goal. Proactive code, landscaping, and attracting businesses. They all kind of combine into one.
Okay.
But that's what I feel. And then I really like the shuttle around El Cajon.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with that.
All right. Mr. Mayor?
I would say landscape and attracting businesses.
Okay. So you guys are coalescing around sort of these two main points. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Right. I think
Okay.
it all has to do with entry points, though. If you look at it, everything is kind of centered around that.
Yeah. Okay, on the miscellaneous, is there anything on this list that you as a council just cannot get behind or support further exploration of any of these things?
No.
No.
I'm good with all of them.
Okay. All right. So can we hear a public comment at this time, council?
Yeah. Yeah, please.
Angela, can you
Yes.
run that?
It is from Patrick Griot, and he writes, I support prioritizing homelessness and economic development as top goals that go hand in hand. Helping one will help the other. I think that continue the work in TDSP area and downtown to beautify and develop those areas will have a multiplier effect in bringing in not just business tax base, but also vitality and a better image to El Cajon. End of comment, and no more comments.
Well, that sounds like it was exactly what the council's been talking about. So that's great to hear that we're getting some feedback. So council, you have a pretty comprehensive list, but I think it's one I think staff is excited to dive into. I think it's reasonable. It's manageable. Is this the list that council wants us to focus on? And I don't think we need to vote. We're just looking for feedback to make sure that we're on the right page.
I like the process. I think it really helped clarify ideas into more usable things.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. I see Michelle nodding. All right. Thanks, you guys. So there's no way we can get the draft plan to you by your next council meeting, which is next week, but we will have it by the end of March. We'll have an implementation plan, draft implementation plan, and we'll go from there. So if there's nothing else, I'm going to turn the time over to you, Mayor, to adjourn this meeting if there's nothing else we want to talk about.
I'd just like to say thanks to the staff for hanging in there for a couple hours.
Yeah.
We've got a great team.
Yeah, a lot of good information from the staff. Appreciate that.
Great. Good to hear.
All right, this brings us to adjournment. The adjourned joint special meeting of the El Cajon City Council and El Cajon Housing Authority held this first day of March 2021 is adjourned till Tuesday, March 9th, 2021 at 3:00 p.m. Thanks. Good night.